Why Mopars suck. Right? It's not just clickbait, right? I actually have a reason why Mopars suck, specifically Mopars from the classic era. But it actually takes somebody who loves these things as much as I do and knows them the way I do to find this stuff and point it out to you guys. And this also explains why there's such a huge discrepancy in performance between very similar cars. You know, you'll have like tales of like the 68 383 4-speed Roadrunner that owned the town, right? Shut down every other big block there was. And then the other one that wouldn't run if you dropped it off of a cliff. You know, 1550 car weaving its way down the track. So the reason for that is because of the incredible inconsistencies in the castings that Chrysler put out in those days. So you got to go back 1950s, 1960s Chrysler engineering. Chrysler Corporation pride themselves on innovation and engineering. And you know, you stop and you think about it. The same engines that those guys drew out in pencil, still the top fuel dragster, 12,000 horsepower, the most powerful internal combustion engine on earth, is still true to the design of the original Chrysler engineers. So Chrysler spent their money. Remember, they were the smallest of the big three. You know, they're always strapped for cash. So they put their money in engineering. They put their money in materials. The castings, cylinder heads, blocks, top-rate material. But where the cheapness shows, where the corner cutting shows, is in the actual castings themselves, the way the castings are laid out. So this came to like my forefront a few days ago. I was over at my friend Dallas's, and he had a 430 Buick head. It was stripped, valves were out of it and everything, it was bare, and it's sitting on the bench. And I'm looking at the head and I'm saying, my God, this thing is just beautiful, right? You know, all of the bowls were perfect, the ports were perfect, there was no like built up, you know, sand and you know, whatnot in there, you know, to roughen it up. It actually, the production line Buick, you gotta excuse the thunder, right? That's the Chrysler gods being mad at me for dissing them, right? Actually, this is why we're moving into the new shop, because we don't have a place to shoot where there's no weather and cicadas and dogs barking, birds chirping, and UPS guys coming and going. So bear with us for another week or two. So that Buick head reminded me of hand-laid castings, like for instance 426 Hemi or Max Wedge, the earlier X heads, where the cores were carefully laid out, and those castings really need very little in the way of finish work, just minor porting, minor cleanup, but for the most part they're tight. But when you take a regular production line cylinder head, like this 360 head is a perfect example, man, they can be really rough. I did a pair of 906s. I ported a set of 906s not too long ago, right? And one of them I actually had to throw away because in the process of trying to even out the top and the lower parts of the core, the heads are cast with a lower core and an upper core. And there was such a mismatch between the cores in the bowl area that I actually broke through water just trying to even it out. Not trying to make it bigger, not trying to, you know, just trying to get it out. It got into water. So this head here is a pretty good example. This is a typical assembly line 360 head that I started porting, and we'll get back on this soon. Like I said, as soon as the move is done, we'll be back on all of our various cars and projects and whatnot. So this is one that I started porting, and this pretty well illustrates what I'm talking about. So look at these two exhaust ports. This one I started cleaning up, right? I got the basic shape. It still needs to be finished, but here's the basic shape of it, and here's one that's untouched, okay? Now look at this difference between these two ports, right? We'll take this measurement here, and that's just about to the edge of the seat, with still a little bit of room left for cleanup, right? So, here's where we're with that, and now watch this. And that's the naked port. That's the one that's just as Chrysler cast it. Go back here. There's the difference. So you've got a 1.6 valve, but it might as well be a 1.4 valve. The roughness all through here, the sharp edges, the casting, you know, from the sand, because they just weren't careful when they packed the cores. This was like third shift minimum wage work, and they just slammed it through as quickly as they could. The machine surfaces all turn out nice, but the area inside the bowls is so much sharp edge, so much inconsistency, it's just, they're a mess. They take a lot of work to clean up. Look at the exhaust side here. So here's an exhaust port that I cleaned up right to the edge. So here you see the witness mark, okay, from the where the gasket's at. So you can see that we open this up to its intended surface, right? This is where the gasket met. Look at the difference here. And then you've got this big ridge. Now again, this is part of the design, okay? You know, because they needed to put this indent here for the head bolt. So they had to intrude into the exhaust a little bit to get it done. But this is severe right here. And on one of them, on the other head, this was an actual ledge, like it was just like an L-shaped thing. There was no smoothness to it at all. But look at the difference here between these heads take a lot of time and effort to clean up, much more so than a typical General Motors or Ford casting. And you never know what you're going to get. You know, that's the thing. You buy these parts, you go to a swap meet, or you go to a guy's house and you buy a set of cylinder heads, you may be buying a real set of, you know, turd heads with, like on those 906s where the cores didn't line up at all. There's a huge difference. There's much more of a difference between a ported and prepared production Mopar cylinder head from the classic era than similar Ford, GM, like even the AMCs. Chrysler really dropped the ball when it came to the quality control on these things. So what to look for externally? You know, not a whole lot. There's, like I said, these heads are cast. They're mad at me. Gotta tell it like it is, guys. You can generally tell by the roughness of the casting on the outside. You know, if you've got big seams like here, right? You can generally tell the condition of what the core is going to be like on the inside, but you're never sure until you drop the valves out of it and you actually start looking around inside. So that, Chrysler was at the top of their game engineering wise. They did phenomenal things, but they dropped the ball in terms of quality control. And that's one of the reasons why Chrysler products had the reputation back in the day of being inconsistent, you know? What are you gonna do? I still love them. So that's it. I hope you got something out of that. I'll see you tomorrow.